Welcome to PsyMood series, a podcast about mental health. We will touch on popular topics and insights from professionals from PsyMood. Hi everyone, this is Sally from PsyMood, and welcome to PsyMood's podcast. This is our first therapy exchange. We have invited specialists from our platform to talk about one topic. We hope you enjoy this session. Argentina, hi. Can you give a brief bio about yourself and let us know a little bit of where you are now as well?
Okay, so my name is Argentina. I'm a psychologist from Brazil. I'm licensed in Brazil. At this moment, exactly, I'm traveling, so I'm in UK. But in a few weeks, I'm back to Brazil.
Right.
I studied psychology in Brazil. This year is going to be 10 years, and I finished my degree. But I just started work with clinical psychology in 2019, end of 2019. After I lived abroad and I had some experience. And then from that, I started to work with Brazilians living abroad, and then sometimes with some foreigners too. That was living in Brazil or living abroad, but have somehow some kind of relationship with the Brazilian culture. So yeah, so from that, I'm working remotely. I'm a CBT therapist, and then I'm specializing in studying in intercultural psychology. So besides the clinical, I'm making up like some workshops and trainings about interculturality too.
Wonderful. Welcome. And Emmanuella, please let everybody know about yourself and where you are as well.
So I am right now in Calgary, but I originally come from Cameroon. Um, so I am a nurse. I'm an LPN nurse first, and I just graduated from my social work with a social work degree. I'm just getting to do some more workshops, just to learn more about, some tools that I can use in the future for clients. I'm also still looking to get admission into my MSW, which is has too many demands. So I'm trying to get in. But for now, I work as a nurse. I just volunteer with the kids in the system, like the justice system. Just you know mentoring them and trying to break some barriers and see how we can empower the children to you know stand on their own. I'm just doing many things right now here and there, but my focus is really clinical social work, so I'm down that path, still training.
That is wonderful. I love how both of you guys are so worldly. And the topic we're having this for the first therapy exchange is about homesickness. And um did one of you guys want to start about describing what is homesickness?
I can talk a little. So
Sure.
when I talk about homesickness, we are talk about the feeling of missing um, your back, your when you're missing the things about your home, usually from people that are live it abroad or moving for some places. So you when you start to, even though you're enjoying and you know why you're in this other place, but you start to feel to miss the food, miss the family, miss the connections, and then it starts to be a hard time because you get really emotional conflict about that. It's like how I can live something I want, but at the same time I'm missing so much what I left behind. So it's in general this is the idea of the homesickness, but each person can feel this way in a different way, in a specific way, and it really depends on how about. So sometimes connection, sometimes habits, sometimes um just patterns. So this is
And Emmanuella, in your profession, do you bump into a lot of people who suffer from homesickness?
Yes, I have, and even in my nursing practice, it's hard to be in a different country with different cultures and beliefs and viewpoints, and trying to integrate. Um, Even though there is always this talk about like diversity and inclusion, but there is really not inclusion. It's just hard for people to um, feel comfortable, to feel at home in their host country. So I think there might be two things, like uh, they're trying to fit in. I don't know if fit in is the right word, but they try the feeling that, oh, I'm welcome here, I can really make this a home, is lacking. So then people are tended to think, oh, I miss my home, or if I were in my home, I won't feel like this, I won't feel like that, I will feel more comfortable, more at ease. And then so then while we're here, we're always feeling that pressure, that stress of like, oh, I don't belong here, I think.
In Argentina, do you hear similar things with your clientele?
Yes, as I said, it's really different. So you have people that's really missing. eh, Well, let's go back. So usually there are a lot of people then when they move, they are really excited about the news and the opportunities and everything else. But when you start to do, when she Manila said the fit in, like the process of adaptation, the integrating with the new culture, you start to feel this. These things you're missing because you started to get to know about your own culture, your own habits, and you started to look. It's everything that was new is not that much excited anymore, and then you start to look things that's familiar for yourself, and then when you don't find it, you started to look. You start to have this feeling. So I do have clients that usually they really compare about the habits, the way they are working before, the lifestyle they're having now. uh, they miss a lot of the friends and the way they are making friends, because sometimes they think they're going to have the same connections or they can get to know the same way, but when you're in a different culture, the connections they build up in a different way. So I have like homesickness about some clients that bring up homesickness about being around the family, you know, have someone that you can count on, or even though the opposite, like being there to them, they're being closer. You have this dynamic and the family dynamic. So I got those kind of things, and then sometimes it's like really basic things. I wanted to cook something for myself and I cannot find that. Um, I would like to wear something, even though the weather is expected sometimes to give homesickness because you used to one kind of weather for your whole life. Many if you go, for example, from hotter country to a cold one, they really you feel like a lot, and then you're feeling that they don't have energy. I had a client that is pretty active in winter, and she wasn't able to be that because when in winter she just think about I just need to sleep and not move until the sun comes in again. And then for her, when it was in winter, back in Brazil, was pretty active, but just because the way she understand how she can support and how can deal with the cold weather, even though with the snow, and that's something really new. So yeah, I have like different aspects on the clinical when you can look about the homesickness aspect.
And how quickly can somebody feel homesickness? Does it happen right away, or does it happen like way later? How early can you diagnose yourself feeling homesickness?
I think it is really depends on the kind of situation the person is going. So when she moves, when the person's moving because she's really interested to move from the country, it's a new opportunity. So you're going to have more time in this excitement because it's everything new, just wanted to learn about and everything. But when you move, for example, if you're a refugee or in a situation, then you just need to go there. And then when you get there, you just need to find a job and find a work. You don't have this time to get to know around. So probably it's shorter because you're just getting like the responsibilities and everything else. You don't have like this time to process. But really depends. So there are some theories that say like 2 weeks, for 2 months. Really depends how the each person. But usually you have like a time frame. Then people to get started to me is like it's like when you start to have a routine. You know that you started to be located. Like okay, now I'm here. This means now I'm having life here, and then you started to get this because you start comparing things from your back from your home country from where you're living now, and then we started this comparison. You started to feel like okay, and then I can give you can give more emphasis from the what you have back home, so you can feel more this the homesickness.
And do you agree with that too, Emmanuella? What Argentina says? It's like, do you feel like when you talk to your clients, the homesickness is also kind of depending on their situation?
Yeah, like Argentina is saying, it really is dependent on the person, because some people, when they move, maybe they have already a large family where they're going. So then the shock is a little bit absorbed because they have the support system. Um,
Mhm.
but if you're just by yourself and like and then you just find yourself in a new environment, no support, um, you have no one to tend to, you don't know where to go, you have nowhere to buy nothing, you don't even know um, maybe to use the equipment in the house or something, or where to find just Wi-Fi, and then that way you're gonna feel that shock, like
Mhm.
right away, and you just it's gonna hit you hard if you didn't prepare yourself before moving. um
Mhm.
but like I said, if for some people they're able to connect with like immigration um agencies, so they sort of get help that way. But it just depends how quick a person is gonna have with the transitioning, like how much support you have with transitioning yourself. I think that plays a lot in how homesick you might feel.
Mhm.
It's kind of interesting because you brought some nice key points of like situations. Like, what are like the biggest like thing that your clients have talked about where they're like, oh, I feel homesick because of this? Is it usually like I'm thinking food, but it might not be food. But I was wondering for both of you guys, like, what is the one thing that your clients have talked about when they're like, they just realize that, oh, I'm kind of homesick because this is not in my life. What kind of thing would it be?
So for me in Canada here, it's like stress. Like there is so much stress. People, I don't. They like, oh, I don't feel accepted. I don't
Mhm.
feel like I belong. I don't feel, I was happier back home. But people say, oh, now I find myself, I'm always sad. There is really a big wall when it comes to integrating
Mhm.
people. And I must say, like, for most immigrants, I don't know, I come from Africa. Africa, we're very welcoming, we're very warm that way. Like, you treat your visitor well. You welcome them, and you make them really feel comfortable. And then perhaps this is what we're used to. And then, when you get here and people are very cold, and so people feel the stress right away. Like right away, you just feel like, oh my, I don't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And this is exactly what I was going to say. Like, usually one of the main points, it's not finding connections, not feeling accepted, so you don't feel belong in this place, and then you want to just get back for your safe place. And then the other point is exactly related to that, because when I start to find my kind of food, it's just because I'm trying to find my comfort, the thing I already know, I know it's good for me. And then you get frustrated because you cannot find the same things. Or when you start to miss family, just because it's the feeling you have when you have your family around, that you feel safe and then you belong to that in this place. And it's really interesting when you look at this way. So I completely agree with Emmanuella brought.
If you do feel homesickness and you were able to go home, is that the best cure, or is that running away from like a situation, or would you say like that is one way to be cured or facing this difficulty, or would you think that's more of a not a solution but adding to the fire of feeling homesickness?
For me, I don't think it's a quick yes or no, or like just move, because like you most of the time people move because they're looking for better opportunities, you know. And as much as feeling accepted and feeling comfortable is like a it's almost like a basic need, you know. But people also, you know what you left home, you know what your family sacrificed to send you here, and you just put in so much work. You don't want to disappoint your family. They're counting on you. You need to get that job, you need to send that money, you need to support. You know what you left, even though it is that hard. You know why you came. And then so people just, you know, especially people from my community, people don't see it like stress. They don't even, until it's so accumulate, and then, you know, it begins to ooze out in other ways. So why we know that it's hard, we can't just give up.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Like most of the Brazilians that usually they make this movement, the immigration, they do that. For example, I do have a client sell everything. Then she's going there to try, and then she cannot go back, because when she go back, she's just going to start over. And one another point about going back is just depends the way you are. For example, depends on the visa, because sometimes it was so hard to get the visa to get there, and then you cannot travel in 2 years, in one year, because you're not allowed to go in and out. Depends the kind of visa you have. So sometimes it's really not option, or you're going exactly what Manuela said, or you're going to give up, or you're going to stay and need to deal with all the emotions.
When you do feel homesickness, like, does it affect so much that it becomes like a mental health issue? Like, does it become like, I know you talked about stress and depression. Is it like when you feel, does it become like worse?
I think it just depends on the resilience of each person,
Mhm.
you know. um like some people already have a way to balance their life, right? So it doesn't necessarily become depression. It doesn't necessarily become like very stressful, such that people need professional support or something. People, especially people in my community, I know they have a way of not like just getting depressed right away. It might be distressing, but I think the purpose of why people are here in Canada, it triumphs, that gives them the purpose to help their family, the purpose to
Mhm.
work hard and achieve what they came here for. I think that kind of overpower that homesickness. And again, people know that, okay, I can um visit, maybe I can visit home for a week or two. And now with also cell phones and FaceTime and WhatsApp, so that way people can communicate with their families and still feel supported uh, via the media. Um, People are not necessarily gonna just give up, because like I said, they know how hard it is for the rest of the family. Usually the family has sacrificed a lot, so that drive to succeed, I think, it keeps people more focused on that than just giving in to the depression or giving in to the stress.
Yes, and exactly like as Emmanuel said, it's really about the resilience. So depend the background of the person and the reason why she's moving, and what the reason this is going to add a lot. But there are people that can go through a lot of anxiety and depression, or even though other kind of disorders that can get more intense. Uh, but it's really about like how the person has this resilience worked on, or even though the intercultural competence, like about the adaptation, flexibility, and other competence that can are developed, have before or developed, and then they are able to deal with that. But if the person doesn't have these cognitive skills, social skills, and then they probably going to drive off for some kind of mental health uh, issue, because they don't have inner abilities to deal with all those changes, because these changes can be really can get a big dimension. They're not going to be able to do that. And of course, as you said, like there are a lot of people, depends on the background why you're doing that. They're going to have this from their own life, because their own culture already taught them that they need to go, they need to be resilient, they need to do the best. So this is already building up a lot of the resilience on that. But there are few cultures, or I would say even though social levels, they're not going to have the same. So there are people, for example, that come from a nice lifestyle, like a good level, social level, and when they go for another country, then they need to take care of themselves. So, for example, I do have clients that never cook, and then when they move abroad, they start to cook. So they need to learn to do those kind of things. So it's exactly how flexible this person is to, okay, now I need to learn how to do that. And then I'm going to challenge, maybe it's not going to be good. And then with the time, I'm going to processing this. And to the time, then, okay, now I found my way to do that. In my way of cooking, I would say, like, this is just a metaphor. It's like my way of doing that. But there are people that can't. So no one taught me back home. I never create those kind of skills. And when I got this with a lot of challenges, a lot of feelings, I don't know how to deal with that. And then I can get the person can get a breakdown, or cannot recover of a breakdown, because sometimes you can have downs. But you say like, okay, I understand, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling anxious, but I need to go back. The purpose is really, really important when the person has really clear the purpose, because they're like, okay, I need to go back because I have this is really important for me, because that and that and that. So this make the person always keep it going and overcome those feelings.
And I know you guys mentioned some ways to reduce homesickness. Is there like a tip that you guys could give to when somebody is feeling homesickness in the moment? What kind of tips can you give them to kind of make them feel better? Emmanuelle, you want to go first?
If I were to have someone like, what will you do right away? um Don, you have to acknowledge that, yes, I'm feeling homesick. This is what it is right now. This is my reality right now. um I'm I can, like I said, I can call someone, I can text someone from my back home, or I can play a music, from in my own language. I can smell a spice that is from my culture. I can cook a food, I can get a drink that remind me, or I can just see some pictures of my hometown, and that way I can feel, a little bit at home.
Exactly. I think maybe the only thing I could add there, if it's you're in a place and you have a community from your own your own country, sometimes do really do meet people that's your from same background and for culture, something good add. But exactly, it's trying to find this comfort moments and comfort talks, keep connections. So even though you're abroad, even though you're far, just keep these connections is really important. So yes, the ways that you can do that, and exactly when you acknowledge and start to develop that, because you can get a filter really like, okay, so I don't like more this country, this is not good, and then like how I can be flexible, understand that's really important for me, everything that's make me remind my place, but I can maybe get a little of both. Now, when you talk about integrating, sometimes you can just get your own culture and you can just live your own culture in the new country. There are people that's like living 20 years and don't speak the language of the country they're living because they're just in their community. Or I can choose integrate way more of the other one, and I can have a little of both. So I can start to explore things. So why I cannot explore what? Okay, I have this food from my house, but from my home country. But what kind of things I can start to eat here that maybe can make me feel comfortable here too? So I think it's interesting. I think maybe in the first moment, this like, okay, let's feel safe, but then start to do this flexibility about, okay, let's integrate one thing with another thing too, and then make this new place have meaning for me.
I have a funny question. Can you feel multiple homesicknesses? So I was thinking, for example, like you moved to Canada and then, you feel homesick. And then what if you're like, oh, okay, I have a co-op somewhere in Europe. Can you feel a double homesick where you're like homesick for Canada and like the place you came from?
Yeah. This is interesting because when you talk about this, I just remember we call this syndrome, return syndrome, because exactly this. Because sometimes you left your country, so you start to go through all the adaptation process in this new country, and then you get used to, and then you started to feel more belong in this place, and then back home to your own country. But when you go back home, you're not more the same person. Your country is not the same thing, and you don't have the same reference. So you start again the process in your own country. So you can have that, and even though it's like if you're moving, and then you started to make this process of identifying yourself in these different cultures and different things, you can be missing some things that feelings that you have, like as I said, even though for myself, like I travel some places, but it's funny. I live in Ireland, so now I'm UK. But I would visit Liverpool, and Liverpool has a lot of Irish, and it was like I was so happy that there was an Irish pub, because this make me feel like I was in Ireland, and there are a few places that make me feel like I'm near Brazil or some food or something like this. So you can have this feeling of identification because you can see that sometimes you see yourself identifying yourself with the different cultures, like mainly who travels a lot. And if you're going to get, like, for example, we call the TCK, a third kids culture that really traveling was born in one country and living in another one. I have parents for different countries, so this really can happen.
That's so interesting. And um, Emmanuella, like maybe I could ask you this question. Like what kind of like steps can you, or like if you're an anxious person and you're gonna go and live in a new country, what kind of tips can you give to a person to lessen the feeling of homesickness?
For me, I think for you to go to a new country, don't uh, um,
Argentina already mentioned it before. Like you need to like do some research. What kind of things can I expect? You know, uh, what kind of food do they eat? What kind of job am I going to have? What kind of house? You need to at least have some idea about what is waiting for you. And I think that sometimes if we have those basic needs like shelter, where you're going to shelter, you have a financial security, or it's either the money you're bringing or uh, maybe the job that you're after, if you have a job already, uh, you know, and do I have some a contact person, like I said, an immigration person, agency person who can, show me around a little bit. I think if you have an idea, then the transition process is going to be a little easier, or at least it's something you expected. It's not going to be that shock. Yeah.
That was lovely. No, that is great tips because yeah, like you said, like doing research and trying to learn as much as you can of the new country, like researching even what kind of things that you could find in the new country about your home country might be nice too, because like Argentina said, like you love finding like things from like you're in UK and you're like, oh, you bump into something from Brazil. That's kind of like cool. And you kind of feel a little nostalgic, but for me, I love bumping into things that is Japanese and everything. Even though I was born and raised in Canada, but I just feel like, oh, that's kind of like culture that I could relate to, and that's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm. It's really nice.
So, I guess like another question I have is like, can homesickness come back? Like, if you're in the same place, like, that when it comes back, is it less powerful? And like, have you heard people's homesickness coming back?
Not sure if I understood.
So like, if you're feeling homesickness and then and let's say like, you dealt with it and you live your life, and then you're going through the transitions and adaptations, and then suddenly like something hits you and then it all flows back. Like does that, like, is that intensity and that feeling of homesickness, like, does that happen in people a lot?
Yeah. I cannot say exactly if I would say like the exact terminology for the homesickness, but yes, you can, when you, for example, if you have established life and living something, so maybe you're feeling like feel home if you felt a little disrespect at home in the beginning, but sometimes could be really deep or sometimes not. But then you have some kind of transitions or something really shocking and happening in our life, you can really back, because in that time you're going to miss all this background you need. And then mainly what Emmanuella said, like your network and people you can count on. So then when you're going to miss that. So if someone lose a job or have one thing I can completely see that is about maternity. Sometimes it's like, okay, when you're a couple and you're working, and then you started to have this, everyone have your own dynamic. But when mainly the women, when she gets in the maternity, she really starts to fail because they're not going to have anyone to really help around. And if you get, for example, someone that has coming from a country that there's your families around, they can count with mother, good mother, and everyone raises your own children, and then you see yourself like no one to count on, and or if you need, it's really hard to ask help. So you can really put yourself on those kind of situations, like these mixed feelings about being at home and being with the warming of the family and everything. So really, like if you have something impactful in your life, it's something that can come.
That's a good point. Like I was just yeah, like I could almost imagine that happening, especially like those points of life, like you said, like getting pregnant and starting a family. That is a big one. Segueing from the family, like I know we were generally talking about homesickness, like in a person. We didn't specify an age or anything. I was wondering, Emmanuella, maybe you know, does homesickness feel more stronger? Like, does children feel homesickness differently than a parent feels, an adult feels homesickness?
Mm.
I wouldn't say I will say that adults might handle it better because they have had experiences, they have better resources to absorb the the stresses or how to process their emotions and all. Um, for the kids, it's a little bit complicated, because they have to go to school and they have to meet with people who don't know anything about their culture except have the stereotypes and the biases and uh, the media. And the media is not especially good at expressing the truth about uh, specific groups of people, if I may talk about my people, you know. So for the kids, I think it's just because their brains are so young, it is complicated. It is more uh, having a bad impact on their upbringing because um, they don't get that opportunity, to live the life like the free life, like they would have done otherwise if we were back in if I can use my country as an example, you know. But for us, we adults, we know things. We our brains have much force. We have experiences. We have learned a lot of resources and techniques and tools that we can use. You know. So in that way, I would say it's a little bit hard for the kids.
And it's an interesting point because, like, when she said, like, usually people, when they move abroad, they have a purpose in some specific situations, but not the kid, not the children, because they're just following the parents. So it's hard. But at the same time, maybe the impact is bigger in the beginning, but they have more flexibility to get into new connections and everything. So they're going to feel probably way more that why they are leaving their parent, their family, their friends, and how it's going to be. But usually they are easier to integrate with other kids and other people if the people is integrated then. So this is a point too. But usually they have more flexibility, even though for to learn the language, like for the kids is way easier to learn a language when they are living in another country than the person that's adult. They're going to take usually more time to get to used to, or have more concerns about I'm speaking right or not, people understand me or not. So this is one thing that usually happens and kind of really impacts too. So I just remember one situation that's like not adapting for the language can make like bring some aspects of the homesickness too, because you're not going to feel heard, you're not going to feel understood. You feel people, it's not understand what's your point, so you don't feel belonging, integrating, and then sometimes the language barrier, it's something that's going to get the homesickness because in your your home country, everyone can understand you. So it's one point too. Then can make people really just go back.
A good point
Yeah,
there.
Argentina, I really like your point about depending on the country, because as much as we are individuals, but we are also human, if the host country is like very inclusive, if adults, all the homesickness will be reduced. I like your point about that, Argentina. And I think that's really something that being an immigrant you have no control over, because then it's dependent on the other person. So then you can try to modify it, but it's a little bit of a gray area. So then if your environment is your new host country, it's very welcoming, if they're very integrating, then your success will come easier. And then even for the kids, they will blend in without feeling different, you know? So it's really, most of it also depends on the whole country, how they're able to welcome you and help you. And then the more you feel successful in your new environment, I think the less conflict can be.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like that's why I'm so happy that PsyMood is like connecting people like to both of you guys, because like you both are from different countries, you both have different like experiences, and you may be able to connect with somebody else that might be feeling homesickness or any feelings like that, because like what better way to kind of work through a situation by a person who understands your culture and then language and what you're talking about. Like this is the what you guys are saying. It's like it's so relevant, and like I feel like what I'm hearing, like when you do move to a different place and feeling homesickness and everything, is to try to be open-minded, right? Like, would you say that that is pretty like be resilient, open-minded, be
Flexible.
flexible, go with the flow, and then try to learn something new. Um, um, Reach out to people that might help you understand some things. But yeah, being flexible and not so hard on yourself. It sounds like a pretty that's what I'm hearing from you guys.
Yeah, is a self-awareness is really important to be able to identify all those feelings in yourself. It's important, even though the feelings and even though those this competence, because like for example, what I said is like intercultural competence, like everything I developed to live there. But even there, like when I can't see myself or the feeling when I'm doing that, if I have or not some kind of ability, and it's really important to understand. And then even though in therapy, it's something really important when you work, is to understand that, okay, sometimes I don't have one skills, and I'm going to understand why I don't have it and how I can build when I'm living this country or in this situation. Because sometimes can be really just a cultural aspect. I never need to develop this aspect. So it's something I don't need, but sometimes it's really you have your own backgrounds, your owns and everything else, so this is going to influence. So for example, I have a client, and I remember that when she was working, so she has really hard time to talk, like because it's different, like the business in Brazil sometimes, like the hierarchy is different, so usually people it's kind of afraid of positioning themselves. But there are few countries that's the opposite. The boss is really want, like the boss really want to point out and say and give you feedback. And then in Brazil sometimes a little concern of doing that because you never know what can happen. So this was one skill that we started to work through. We talking about how her parenting lifestyle was one that she didn't have autonomy. She couldn't say anything by herself. When she said something was she was limited, she couldn't do. So you can see that the cultural aspect that okay, so this socially talking, we are not doing that. But at the same time, she has really the personal aspect, like why I'm so afraid to try to do that. Because she never learned some aspect and she was block it in some way. So it's really interesting because this is, the therapy one said it's really important because it's important to look at this cultural aspect, but you have this clinical aspect Like, even though some from anxiety and depression, that you're going to have our filters, but even though life backgrounds and life wounds and traumas and everything that can affect this transition. Even though the homesick is like, if I come from a family that I never did anything by myself, and then I go from a new country, then I need to cook, I then need to walk, I need to find out how I can take the metro, how I get to the college, and how I everything. Yeah, the person can have a breakdown because just they never learn how to do that.
Definitely. I can imagine that. Both of you guys have like experience in like living in new places and everything. How did you guys kind of what kind of things did you guys embrace when you kind of felt homesickness? Like, what did you guys do to kind of like feel a little bit better? Argentina, do you
Yeah. Yeah, I think like for me, my first experience then was living abroad. I think make connections. If in the Brazilian, even though I have the goal not being around much and Brazilians, because I want to learn the language and the culture and everything. But I think being around Brazilians, cooking, making our way of the food. So I think this was really an interesting way of doing that. And then one thing that's really interesting, then I was talking with a friend those days too, it's the when I go back, when I stay longer outside, when I go back home. And then it was how I was missing like simple things, like some just street food, or the way you just sit down on the street to have like a drink with a friends and really in a simple place. So it was exactly these small things you're missing more than the big things. But then it really depends. For example, as I kind of had few trips and something, now this is not the same anymore. But I think the first and second time is like, no, I really need to get that. When I go back, I know I'm going to eat it. I had the list, like in 2-3 weeks, I need to eat those kind of things because I'm really missing those kind of things. But like now, I don't have much like this. But this is really interesting to look in this aspect. But when in another places, I try to make connections. It's not the focus, but every time I had the chance to, okay, it's happening something from Brazil, or okay, I got to know. I think Brazilian have Brazilians in every place, so it's sometimes you're just walking this like you start talking for Brazilians. So yeah, I think it's just like having those kind of things, and I think the talking, and even though just like, okay, I need to talk, and then like, okay, it's just a message for someone, like let's have a call and spend like 1 hour each, like just having a really nice call and talk and see how things it's going back home. Yeah.
Yeah, when you said that missing those little small things, I'm not born in Japan, but every time I do visit my grandparents in Japan, the smell of the air, I always like, that's like so nostalgic. And then like you don't smell that smell of the air here in Canada. Like when I go back home and then I like breathe in the air, I was just like, oh, this is kind of like my other home. Like it's kind of nice. And those little things, like, yeah, when I visited Japan like last year, that's the thing. One thing I kind of missed is like, oh, I didn't realize I was missing that in my life, and so yeah, that was kind of nice.
Yes.
And thank you both for like joining. I know like this was our first time doing this, and I thought it turned out really nice, and it was such a nice therapy exchange. I'm hoping to do this again soon, and yeah, I hope you guys both come back and join and share your thoughts and your experience and stories. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
PsyMood is an online mental health platform that connects you with mental health specialists who speaks your language and understand your culture. You can find us at our website at psymood.com and on our social media channels on Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn at PsyMood. Don't forget to follow, like, and share, and comment. Thank you for existing.